When I graduated from West Point back in 1993, over 50% of the apparel was made in the U.S. Today it's 3.
What would be your appeal to them? Why should they care that their t-shirt, their socks are being made by fellow Americans?
You know, the mantra of freedom is not free is so true.
But what's the best way that even just Christians can honor veterans? Lots of American flags, but how do
I could walk all day long here.
Isn't this amazing?
It just brings me incredible joy.
Yeah.
In some areas of life, you train until you get it right. In our line of work, you train until you can't get it wrong. It's good old Made in USA.
You don't see that very often.
3%. But this one has a fun innovation. And we were cruising along at 10,000 feet, just chatting it up, having a good time, and all of a sudden, the engine stopped. And I mean, I was a young pilot, had no idea. I had no.
He's giving back to our heroes, and he's donating 10% of every sale to charities that support veterans.
Founder of Authentically American, Dean Wegner.
I saw Carrie Underwood post this amazing video of a country road in Nashville that has American flags for almost 2 miles long. I thought to myself, I need to do a Salty Christian episode right here. Welcome to the Salty Christians. My name is Matt, and happy birthday, America. I figured for America's 250th, I had to do an episode, a patriotic episode, and I've got the perfect guest and the perfect location to do this. I want to introduce you to my new friend, Dean. Dean, welcome to
Matt,
the
how are
Salty
you?
Christian. So we are out in Leipers Fork, Tennessee. There are hundreds, literally, you're going to see it. We're going to probably walk past at least
thousands
of American flags. So let's go ahead and get walking. But
let's do it.
I want you to tell me just kind of the Wikipedia, the Reader's Digest version of who is Dean. What's your background?
Well, I love when given the opportunity, Matt, to start here, because very clearly in this priority for me, it's God, family, country. And my Christian faith is absolutely first and foremost in my life. And then, you know, very quickly behind that, it's all about family for me. And hard to believe this year, my wife Kelly and I will celebrate anniversary number 32.
Wow, congratulations.
32 years. Well, if she was here, or people that know me that well would be like, he is a lot to put up with. So
congratulations to her.
Yes. God, family, country, when you want the quick snapshot version of me, that's what it's all about.
Okay, and we're going to talk about your business, Authentically American, coming up here, because that's how I actually met you. I heard you speaking and talking about that. And if anyone's watched Fox News or many TV shows, you've been on there many times. But with America's 250, I think a lot of us are reflecting on our nation and how great it is. I'm sure you, as serving our country, reflecting on that. I want to talk about just how has your faith influenced or impacted your patriotism?
So it actually, for me, started in reverse order, because I have some fun telling the story. Would you be okay if I told the story about how my wife and I met?
That is the goal of this channel, is to have great stories that just kind of encourage people in their faith. So,
and it is amazing, Matt, because I've got a fun picture of my wife and I, and I am literally hanging upside down. And this is at a fun restaurant we were at, and it was called the Giggling Marlin. So you pretend you're Marlin, you're hanging upside down, and I highlight that photo because it's very symbolic of our relationship, because for 2 reasons why. Number one, when I met her, I fell madly in love with her, and she literally turned my world upside down. And you and I just met a couple months ago, but if you would have known me in college, I was not a bad guy, but I definitely was not living a godly life. I was living for the party. I was wild and crazy and really not living a godly life at all. So compare and contrast that to my wife, Kelly. She accepted Christ at a young age, and she had some incredible godly women that poured into her life, and they encouraged her to pray and wait. Pray and wait. And they literally, Matt said, make a list. They encouraged her to make a list of the godly characters and traits she wanted in a future husband. And I think she thought she was going to marry a missionary, and she got the original wild child. She got me.
You didn't tick off many things on that list at first.
Fortunately, I think she started that list when she was really young. Because by the time she met me, that list whittled down, and I made it. But I highlight that because God's divine intervention, I mean, it was ultimately my wife, Kelly, that introduced me to Jesus, and I still fall short. I still am a sinner like all of us here, but my whole life, my whole focus is completely different. It's completely Christ-centered now.
Yeah. I actually, when I met you, you shared a story about, there was some, I forget exactly, but you were flying in a helicopter from Vegas to Los Angeles, right? And I think it's something that stuck with you forever. But just to maybe share with the audience, like that, a little bit of that story.
So I chose aviation as my brand. So I was in LA.
Okay.
And most people don't know, LA is actually Lower Alabama. So I was there in Lower Alabama at Fort Rucker learning how to fly helicopters. And my first duty assignment was the Army's National Training Center, Fort Irwin.
Okay.
So if you can picture on a map, Las Vegas and Los Angeles, right in the middle of nowhere is the National Training Center, the high desert of California. And I was a young second lieutenant at this point, and I was on a night cross-country mission with CW5 Leon Whitehurst. So here I am, a young second lieutenant with less than 100 flight hours, and I am in the cockpit with CW5 Leon Whitehurst, who was one of Army Aviation's finest with over 10,000 flight hours. And two fun stories that, ironically happened on the same flight. So one, we were getting ready to take off from Nellis, and Leon said, "Sir, what would you think if I requested the strip transition?" I'm like, "Would I ever?" I will tell you, we proceeded to fly right down the Vegas Strip.
Oh, wow.
Past the MGM, past the Mirage,
Yeah.
right past the rotating restaurant at the top of the stratosphere. Matt, I remember looking at Leon going, "That guy's having a steak." And it's medium rare. I mean, that's how close we are. I mean, just an incredible experience. So I should have clarified, because that was a fun experience, but the next part of this flight was the one that was really scary. So if you or anyone tuning in has ever made that drive from Vegas to LA, you have a vivid picture in your mind, because it is desert, mountainous terrain all around. And, we were flying at night. So unlike the bright neon lights of Las Vegas, I mean, it was completely dark. There was no moonlight, and the little bit of starlight was concealed by unusual cloud cover. And we were cruising along at 10,000 feet, just chatting it up, having a good time. And all of a sudden, the engine stopped. And I mean, I was a young pilot, I had no idea. I had no, and all I could picture, Matt, was running into the side of a mountain.
Wow.
And I thought, I'm gonna lose my bride, Kelly. I'll never have the joy of being a dad. And miraculously, a few seconds later, the engine came through, it stabilized, and we were able to stabilize our flight. And I mean, I had no idea what was going on. And I remember that next 150 miles on the flight back, Leon, calm as a cucumber, he walked me through what we would have done if we would have had a full engine failure.
Yeah.
And I still remember what he said. He said, "Sir, this is why I'm so hard on you and all the junior pilots, because in some areas of life, you train until you get it right. In our line of work, you train until you can't get it wrong. You train until you can't get it wrong." And that is something that has stuck with me until this day. And he was an incredible mentor to me and so many other junior pilots. And what I tell my own kids is, everybody, Matt, needs a Leon Whitehurst in their life.
Yeah. How do people go about getting that in their life?
I'll tell you, don't sit back and wait for them to come to you.
Okay. That's good wisdom, yeah.
I mean,
seek it out.
There are seekers, and then there are people that sit on the sidelines. And, we're a big sports family, and I believe, nothing happens when you're just sitting on the sidelines watching. You need to get in the game. And I think that's just true of so many things in life, where, it may be hard.
Yeah.
It may not be easy. You may get hurt. You may be a little bit embarrassed, but when you get yourself in the game, you learn.
Yeah. So you kicked off the episode and you said something. You said God, family, country.
Yes.
In those orders. So talk about how, patriotism is at all-time highest, which I love it. Like here we are, lots of American flags, but how do
I could walk all day long here.
Isn't this amazing?
It just brings me incredible joy. Seeing all these flags.
And as a veteran of our country, like I got to imagine, like you experience patriotism in even a different way than I do, and people who haven't served.
I will tell you, Matt, and this is where West Point and serving the Army was so foundational, because the mantra of freedom is not free is so true.
Yeah.
And the flags that were here are just symbolic of this great nation of ours. And you just don't realize, in spite of all of our faults,
Yeah.
you know what? We truly live in the greatest nation in this world. And I mean, it is coming together front and center here, for our 250th birthday. What an incredible institution our founding fathers made. And I don't have my wallet with me, but I love anytime I pull out a dollar bill, you know what's on there?
In God we trust.
In God we trust.
Yeah. So personally, for people watching, how do we keep it in that order? God, family, country. What are some practical ways to do that?
Well, Matt, you are leading the way right here. I mean, you've said, you know what? I have a passion and an interest and skill in digital media and telling stories. So here you are.
Yeah.
I mean, 7 o'clock on a Monday night.
On one of the hottest nights in Nashville.
I'm thankful we're in the shade, because
We are in
otherwise
the
I
shade.
would be dripping in sweat right now. And I mean, that's, another example of, you know what? You don't sit on the sidelines. You're not, always choosing the easiest path. But you're saying, you know what? God's calling me to go ahead and share a message.
Yeah.
And I remember checking out some of your previous episodes. I mean, it is truly encouraging and enlightening for people to say, you know what? People in all different walks of life, you know what? God didn't create us all the same.
Yeah.
I mean, each and every one of us has a unique story and an opportunity to go ahead and share that. And you're, taking the initiative to share those stories. I applaud you.
When you were in the Army, so you were a Christian then?
I was.
A baby Christian, right? What was that like?
Baby Christian. So
you probably had some rough edges.
I still have some rough edges.
Don't we all?
But I will tell you, this was our very first move, and another powerful testimony and lesson to me, because we were moving after flight school, after Ranger School, which is another story. We were moving to our first assignment. I mentioned Fort Irwin. And we were unpacking, and we had the movers that were there, my wife Kelly and I, and it was the high desert, so even hotter it is here.
Dry heat, though.
Yes.
Not this swampy, sweaty heat we have here.
But I remember, because this was one of those formidable lessons, because I'm like, you know what? I kept saying, well, you know what? I don't really, fully grasp the whole magnitude of my faith, and I would struggle to articulate it. And I remember, one of the movers, as we were sitting down, because we brought them lunch, we'd bring drinks, we brought popsicles, things like that, because it's so hot and they're working so hard to keep them cool. And one of them said, Dean, you're a Christian, aren't you? And I said, how do you even know that? We haven't talked about it. There's, no Bibles that you've pulled out. There's no crosses. And he said, you know what? I could just tell. Just the way you and your wife go out of your way to serve and love.
Yeah.
And that was another one of those formidable lessons that said, you know what? I don't have to go ahead and use words.
Yes.
I can let my actions be the loudest representation of my love for the Lord and how I'm going to love others.
Those are the stories I love most on this channel, because, the mission of the channel is to inspire Christians to be salt and light in their sphere of influence. Doesn't mean we all have to be Billy Graham. Doesn't mean we have to be a Chris Tomlin, a major Christian public figure. Like, we all have a sphere of influence, and at that time it was with the men that you were serving with. And
And the biggest influence, back to God, family, country, I believe the biggest impact we can have is to be an incredible husband, to be an amazing dad.
Yeah.
To go ahead and in your own home,
I think we might end here. This looks a little treacherous. So I wanted to get up here. I don't know if people can see it, but there's a barn, and I was going to transition to.
Well, if you want to go single file past
we can go single
here,
file, or we can start heading back, because there's
whatever you.
Yeah. So I want to so this is the beautiful rolling hills, like nothing more American than this. You started a company a few years ago, Authentically American.
Which, by the way, Matt, is this kind of hitting the spot for you?
Oh yeah.
All right.
This is awesome. It's not as hot as I thought it was going to be.
When we're in the shade, it's actually quite nice.
Yeah. So Authentically American, you decided you're going to go from serving our country to becoming an entrepreneur.
Well, it's interesting because, Matt, I tell everybody now, I'm a veteran and an entrepreneur, but when I left the Army in 2000, couldn't even spell entrepreneur. Had no idea, this world existed.
Yeah.
And Main reason being, I had an amazing dad growing up, and for 30 years, he worked for a Fortune 500 company.
Okay.
And that's what most of his friends, that's what most of our neighbors did. So that's the only world I knew.
Yeah.
And I worked for Procter & Gamble and Mars. And some people tuning in may not be familiar with those names, but I'm sure they're familiar with brands like Crest, Tide, M&M's, and so incredibly thankful for that experience because they are both just world-class marketing and branding companies. But one of the things that really drives me is wanting to know I make a difference. And for perspective, Procter & Gamble's an $80 billion business. So you have your own business, you know how many zeros that is.
Yes.
And it's hard to even imagine.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was thankful for that experience because I had some big jobs and was taken really great care of, but I really wrestled within such a big company. Am I truly making a difference?
Yeah.
And that was the initial catalyst to become an entrepreneur. But when you can't spell entrepreneur, I didn't think I had it in me to start a business from scratch. So I entered the entrepreneurial ranks through acquisition and bought my first business in 2012.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm 100% positive it's not a business you've never heard of. But if you've been to a Titans game or a Preds game, you know, any major sporting event or a parade, you know, the military's there, you know, hoisting the colors and praying the national anthem, that was the business I bought.
Oh, really?
A government contractor that produced dress uniforms for the military.
Oh, interesting.
So thousands of uniforms every week for Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines.
Okay.
And that was something I enjoyed because I had an opportunity to reconnect with the military.
Yeah.
And one of the things I learned, Matt, was the shocking history of the apparel industry, which to give everybody an idea how rare American made is. When I graduated from West Point back in 1993, over 50% of the apparel was made in the U.S. Today it's 3%.
Wow.
3% is all that's made here.
And the majority is in China, right?
40% of the world's apparel is still produced in China.
Okay.
China, Bangladesh, Vietnam, all around the world, and very little is produced here in the U.S. And we've talked about my love for this great nation of ours, and I love the opportunity to create American jobs. So I thought, I want to win more contracts. Then I thought, we'll create more jobs. But I was rather naive back then and didn't really understand government contracting because what I really learned is that in government contracting in most areas, it's a bidding process.
Okay.
So Matt, if you and I are bidding on a contract and you had it before and I won, in essence, your job's transferred to me and there's no real job creation. And that was that light bulb moment for me that said, what if? What if instead of being a government contractor, what if we built a brand? And I thought back to the days of Crest and Tide and M&M's, and I also thought, what if instead of what 97% of brands do and chase cheap labor overseas, what if we made the intentional choice to produce right here in the U.S.? And that's where it started, all the way back in 2017. With a blank sheet of paper, with a vision to build this iconic American brand that's truly American made.
Yeah.
And if I'm being honest, I'm exhausted. I mean, it has been the hardest, most challenging thing I've ever done. And not that I ever thought it was going to be easy, but I completely underestimated, you know, how hard building something like this is because the systems, the process, supply chain, everything I took for granted in the Procter & Gamble and Mars days, we've had to build from the ground up. But I will tell you this as well, Matt, as exhausted as I am, I'm even more energized because truly I feel like I have an opportunity to go ahead and have an impact, you know, rebuild an industry and really have an opportunity to leave a legacy.
And you guys are pouring back into some amazing veteran organizations too with your proceeds.
Absolutely are. And that's another thing. When you start a business from scratch, I mean, intentional is one of my favorite words. And, you know, there were some decisions that we made day one. And one of them was around pricing. Because believe in giving back, I think a lot of people would. And the way most companies work, most organizations, they say, okay, we're going to dedicate a portion of our proceeds. It may be 1%, 3%, 10%, whatever it is. But whatever that is, it is a finite amount. And I thought that sounded wonderful, but it also sounded limiting.
Yes.
And what we decided...
It's more of a marketing campaign at that point.
Oh yeah, a lot of companies are like, oh, we donate this.
Yeah,
but,
look how good we are. Yeah. We still want our money.
But here was the decision we made to go ahead and have 2 pricing tiers. So 90% of our revenue is custom. We work with thousands of businesses, charities, nonprofits, and schools, and we decided to have 2 pricing tiers. So if you are Pepsi, J&J, you are any for-profit business, you're paying full price. If you are Tunnel to Towers, Wounded Warrior, any charity or nonprofit, we're doing it at cost. So we don't make any money, any profit, should I say, on those programs. We cover our costs, but what I feel fantastic about is having an opportunity to really support some incredible organizations, help them build their brand, and raise some money in the process.
So about a year ago, I had a guest on here, and he did a quote. I think it was from Luther, but basically it was, you don't know, a Christian shoemaker doesn't share Christ by putting a cross on the shoe. No. They do it by doing quality shoes. And I've seen some reviews, like I looked at the reviews for Authentically American, and I see the interviews, and people are like, this is better quality than this stuff that said made in China. And so
that makes my day when somebody says that, because Jesus, what was his profession?
Carpenter.
You got it. And he didn't make shoddy work.
Nope, exactly.
He made high quality, and that's the way I believe we should be synonymous with American made. It should be high quality. And a lot of times people say, well, Dean, you're thrown for a loop here, because I do know wages in the U.S. are here, China are here, so how are you competitive? And this is where I'm fortunate for education, because after West Point, during active duty, I went to school at night and got my MBA, and there was a case study around Dell. Okay. And they were the initial pioneers about going direct, and they, in essence, cut out the middleman. Because everybody's like, Dean, you're competitively priced, you're parity priced. How do you do that? And if you are a business, you're a charity, you're a church, nonprofit, you will order most of the time from a wholesale distributor. And we don't have a wholesale program, so we only work directly with our clients, because if we're parity priced, if we sell to a distributor, they in turn mark it up. And then Matt, you say, Dean, what happened? We're not competitively priced anymore. So it's a longer game, because there's not as many points of distribution, but I believe this is the best way for us to do that, because then we don't have to worry about another distributor, another wholesale channel telling our story. So question for you, for people who are church leaders, every Memorial Day, Veterans Day, they ask people to stand up, we want to honor you. But what's the best way that even just Christians can honor veterans? Because I think we always feel like nothing's enough, right? Like we truly can't do enough, but what is something that's just the most meaningful? I think some people get, to me, a little, I guess, bent out of shape about what people say specifically. And I'm less about what people say, how they say it, just the fact that they take a moment to say, you know what, Ian, thank you for your service, or you know what, you served in the Army, I really appreciate that. No matter what they say, I'm like, you know what, they were thoughtful enough to, you know what, no matter how they said it, to really appreciate, that opportunity. And I truly, Matt, look back, my 4 years at West Point, my 7 years, from flight school to Ranger School, 93 to 2000, that was such a foundational and formidable area in my life, because, at West Point, learned about mission, heard words like duty, honor, and country, and that really reinforced for me the opportunity as you build a business, as you build an organization, to really make sure values and mission are front and center in what you believe in. And I wish the entire Authentically American team was here, because you would hear them echo the same sentiments that I do about our belief in our mission. Because if you go to our website, authenticallyamerican.us, you will see that the heart of our mission is our passion for creating American jobs. We just happen to be in the apparel business.
That's cool. I got to show people this. Just,
what we've navigated along here, Matt.
Exactly. Thankfully, no broken ankles yet.
No. There were a couple times I came close.
I saw. There was a couple times I almost tumbled into that river, or creek. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed.
There's a couple good stories that I could share. So one is, one of the challenges around how many people really believe in American made and, you know, a story from tunnel to towers.
Yeah, so why is American made so important? Because I can hear it on the other side, well, I just want the stuff cheaper, it's helping more people get, but we also have seen the quality of Amazon stuff, and my wife is like, we got to buy this thing 10 times, we used to only have to buy it once. But yeah, why American made?
Here, I will tell you this, because my initial premise when we launched Authentically American, you know, back to that 3% number, being all that's American made, I thought everyone was like you. I thought everyone was like me, either a veteran and have served this great nation of ours, or very patriotic, and they would love our brand just given how unique that 3% and being American made. So I've sadly learned two things. One, most people don't know where their shirt is made, which I'm actually okay with, because that gave birth to our tagline, "Where's yours made?" And it's designed to be provocative. Tomorrow morning when you or anyone tuning in puts on their favorite shirt, I want them to look at the tag and be shocked and disappointed when they see made in China or made anywhere but the US. But here's the second thing I learned, and this one I've really struggled with, is flat out, most people don't care. I mean, they flat out don't care, and for a while.
And why should they care? What would be your appeal to them? Why should they care that their t-shirt, their socks are being made by fellow Americans?
I think it is back to, I mean, the heart of our nation, you know, is the people. You know, the neighbors and everything we, you know, hold sacred here. When you've got, you know, friends in your church, friends in your neighborhood, and the people that made this shirt, I mean, they are neighbors in a community. They're members at a church. And when you go ahead and make that intentional choice for American made, you're saying, I believe in the American worker. I absolutely believe in the opportunity to go ahead and support, you know, workers here in our great nation. And it's not something that you're going to have an initial immediate gratification. There's not going to be a smiley sticker somebody's going to put on you, but it's something that when you start to think through the whole mechanics of our economy and everything, you know, that very intentional choice makes a difference. And here's one other one that, you know, just in the last 2 years, we had a study that was done, because people have said, well, Dean, I get the American made and I love the veteran owned, but it was almost like they were looking for something else. And we had a study that was done around sustainability and carbon footprint. So the t-shirt that I'm wearing, we make in Texas. And I mentioned that 40% of the apparel is made in China. So if you compare a t-shirt made in China to ours made in Texas, there is a 25% lower carbon footprint for the shirt I'm wearing.
And it's not going to fade the first wash.
No. And what that means is, you know, cleaner air, cleaner water, and overall a cleaner environment for our children. And that's something that is meaningful and impactful.
Well, and then when you're making gear for a veteran organization, they don't want to see it being made in a nation that wants to take us out.
And here's a story that I think you'll appreciate. Are you familiar with Tunnel to Towers?
Yes, oh yeah.
I mean, it is truly an incredible organization, and I'm amazed at how many people still are not familiar, but the quick backstory is Tunnel to Towers was birthed out of 9/11. So an incredibly courageous fireman named Stephen Siller was actually off duty on 9/11. And he heard everything going on the radio, what's happened with the towers. He tried to hop in his truck and drive back in. And of course he couldn't do it. But that didn't stop Stephen. He put on 60 pounds of fireman gear, and ran 5 miles all the way back to the tower. And courageously, he saved countless people's lives, but tragically in the process, he paid the ultimate sacrifice and lost his life. And Matt, I mean, for years it was a group of firemen sitting around a card table, you know, planning a 5-mile run in Stephen's honor. And about 10, 15 years ago, they got really serious, and they're now a $500 million charity. And most people don't realize what they do. And the impact is incredible, because if you're a police officer, you're a fireman, first responder veteran, and you are killed in the line of duty, what Tunnel to Towers does is they pay off your mortgage, so your family never again has to worry where you're going to live. I mean, it is incredible. And in 2022, I was on a virtual Zoom call with their chief marketing officer, Larry Olson, And I knew, Matt, they ordered a ton of apparel. And you remember our tagline, "Where's yours made?"
Yeah.
So I asked Larry, I said, "Larry, I know you order a ton of apparel. Where's yours made?" And he looked at me very, confidently, said, "Dean, we serve veterans and first responders. I gotta believe my team is ordering American made." And he said, "But I want to check." And he went to the back room and he came back and he slammed his hand down on the desk and he said, "Doggone it, I can't believe it.
Wow.
Everything we order is made in China, made in Vietnam, made everywhere but the US." And he said, "That just does not feel right given who we serve."
Yeah.
And Larry said, "I want to run a big test. I want to order t-shirts, polos, socks, quarter zips, hoodies, all kinds of stuff to test your quality." And he called me up, Matt, 3 months later and said, "Dean, everyone absolutely loves it. Everything's incredibly soft and comfortable. And equally important, we told him why. How we serve veterans and first responders, that you're a veteran-owned company and the people we serve deserve American made." But he did say, "Dean, we do have one problem. We've got a ton of inventory, so it's going to take us a while to go ahead and work through that." And Larry called me up 6 months later and said, "Dean, you won't believe what I got in the mail." An incredibly proud veteran donated at our monthly minimum level, and we sent him one of our iconic red hats. That veteran opened it up, saw a made in China tag, he cut it into shreds and sent it back to me with one note that said, "Shame on you. Shame on you." And Larry said, "Dean, that's why we're going to shift a lot of our purchasing to you, because we serve veterans. We serve first responders, and they deserve American made." And what's interesting, fast forward 3.5 years later, they are now one of our biggest clients. And back to those 2 pricing tiers, it just makes me feel incredibly proud, and our team feels incredibly proud to serve an incredible organization like Tunnel to Towers.
Yeah. Well, let's go check out some of the product. Yeah, I told you had to bring the socks. I saw the socks.
And here is a quick, fun story, because we talked about the origin story of Authentically American, and had a very clear vision in my mind of who we are and what we stand for. But the problem is, my marketing budget's about this big.
Yeah.
And back in the P&G and Mars days, we literally had Super Bowl ad budgets. I mean, millions and millions of dollars every month.
Every month,
And I really wrestled with this clear vision on who we are and where we're going, but no money. How are we going to go ahead and get the word out?
Yeah.
And the page we decided to play from the marketing playbook was all about earned media and how do we get as much free press and PR as we can. And I told everyone I knew, every supplier, every customer, every family friend, just told them about our brand and what we were doing. And a month later received a phone call from one of the producers of Fox and Friends.
Wow.
And I was like, first of all, I thought it was a crank call. I'm like, is this for real?
Because that's a lot of free advertising.
Oh, and
to the perfect audience.
And just to set the context, this was of September of 2018.
Okay.
And for context, this was right around the time when Nike launched their Kaepernick campaign. If you remember, there was a whole debate on whether you stand or do you kneel for the national anthem. And when I learned, Matt, there were going to be 2 million people tuning in and we were going to be sitting on the curvy couch, to be honest, I was nervous. I was freaking out. Like, I don't want to screw.
A little different than walking with me through the Tennessee countryside.
I was freaking out, and I did what most any nervous entrepreneur would do. Over prepared.
Yeah.
I literally spent over 100 hours preparing. Wow. And it didn't go perfect.
Yeah.
But it had an opportunity, the way the questions were asked, to go ahead and make a clear position statement on who we are and what we stand for, and that, it's not about what people do, it's about the actions that we take. And I told everybody we are very, very intentional in who we are and what we stand for. And I told them that when you're in the military and your commanding officer walks in, you just don't sit there, you stand up, you salute, and it's a sign of respect. And the same thing with our kids, Matt. If you come over to our house, you're breaking bread with us, they're not going to sit down at the table and you come in, they're going to get up, they're going to shake your hand and look you in the eye. And that's a sign of respect. And that's, a big part of who we are and what we stand for, making some very clear, intentional choices. And I will tell you, that moment we were on national TV changed everything. Not because we're on national TV, not because 2 million people were tuning in, because that was a moment we were put under the spotlight. And that was a moment where we had an opportunity to be very clear on who we are. And when you're caught in the spotlight, you just can't make it up. And this gets back to day one about being very intentional about what we stand for in our ethos, because we said we are going to be a brand that celebrates patriotism. We're going to be a brand that believes in the American worker, and we're going to be a brand that honors American heroes, and we want to be very intentional about serving and giving back. And you compare and contrast that to our walk as a Christian. I know you've been tested, Matt. I know I have, and we all have been. And when you are tested, your faith is put under fire. I mean, you don't get a chance to make it up at that point, and that's why I love you and I have gotten to get to know each other, because iron sharpens iron, and having fellow brothers in your life that what can strengthen you and hold you accountable, and the daily discipline of prayer and devotion. I mean, that's how I start every single day. And I mean, quite frankly, I mean, I need help. I need brothers in my life. I need my wife, my kids, everything to hold me accountable. And I think that was just the important lesson that I learned, is that each and every one of us, no matter how big it is, are going to be under the spotlight at some point. And it's that daily discipline of how you're going to be ready.
That's good. Well, show me these socks.
Oh.
Show these people these socks. I told you specifically, you got to bring the socks.
Yeah. So back to national TV, I forgot to mention, because these have a very fun patriotic design, and that first national TV appearance. Completely forgot about this part of the story.
No,
so
that's perfect. That's the goal of this. I want you just to share stories that encourage people. So
because
that's good.
Back then, he was host of Fox and Friends Weekend, Pete Hegseth.
Oh yeah.
Now he is our Secretary of War. And I gave Pete this fun pair of patriotic socks. And a year later, Matt, I was invited back. And this time Pete was interviewing me. And he's like, Dean, it is so great to see you again. I still have the socks you gave me. They're my favorite pair. And I said, Pete, please say that on national TV. And he did, and you can imagine the spike in traffic and sales. And what he said, or I should say what he didn't say, actually taught me an important lesson, because he didn't mention anything about them being American-made. He said they're so soft, so comfortable. They have this fun patriotic design. That's why they're his favorite pair. But when you have an experience like that, Matt, you want to learn more, and you'll read the fine print that says designed in Nashville and made in North Carolina. And we very proudly produced in 11 states. North Carolina, Texas, Georgia, 11 states. Very intentional choice, because it would be less expensive to produce overseas. But given who we are and what we believe in, that was the intentional choice we made.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, hopefully he's wearing those on the 4th
We've
this
got
year.
a number of photos of him wearing them,
Nice.
so I would love.
I think it's going to be the biggest fireworks show ever, possibly.
Those are the stories I'm hearing.
Okay, well, we'll see. Well, hopefully those socks are there. And then we got Army, which we were just talking. We should have worn this on our sweaty walk tonight.
Yeah, because it is shade, but the sweat is starting to come through now.
I wore a black shirt so you wouldn't see my sweaty pits.
And that's why I wore a darker shirt as well. But I mean, Matt, you remember when I spoke and we had a couple of products here, but if you feel this shirt, you will feel how incredibly soft and comfortable it is, and back to quality and Jesus being a carpenter, and the importance of craftsmanship and quality. So all of our shirts are soft and comfortable, but this one happens to be my personal favorite. There's a good old Made in USA.
You don't see that very often.
3%. But this one has a fun innovation, our sweat activated print innovation, because have you been to the Army Navy game?
I haven't.
Add it to your bucket list.
I hear it's incredible.
I mean, similar story where in spite of our shortcomings as a country, you go to the Army Navy game and you will just be filled with this sense of patriotic pride about men and women serving this country and really pouring it all on the line. So I will tell you, hands down, the Army Navy game is the greatest college rivalry. It is truly America's game.
Wow.
And probably 364 days we love each other, but the day of that Army Navy game,
it's okay to have a grudge.
We don't really like each other. But this one is a fun innovation, so watch what happens, Matt, when I spray this. But let me do this. It may be a little bit smaller, so we'll do it in bigger letters here. 2 of any West Point graduate's favorite words. What's that say?
Beat Navy.
And
So did you make a Navy version that says beat Army as an
I
Army
don't know
guy?
if you can air this part.
Okay.
Because it's a little sensitive with some of my West Point classmates, but we don't discriminate.
Okay.
We do have a Go Navy version
Okay.
because even our Navy
You
friends.
just happened to forget it today.
Yeah. But here's the fun part of this technology, because we serve thousands of businesses and charities, and it's completely custom. Whatever you want printed,
That is cool.
whatever you want magically to appear.
I need to get a salty Christian one when you sweat. You can say salty
You
Christian.
do many of these, you're going to keep sweating.
Exactly.
But here's the fun part, Matt. With it being custom, whatever you want printed, whatever you want magically to appear, we can do. So our business and charity clients, instead of Beat Navy, will have their values or mission statement magically appear, reinforcing that valuable life lesson around hard work. And that's when I love to get photos from our clients like, Dan, look at this. I mean, our whole team was out here doing it. So it's really just a fun way to reinforce who we are as a brand and some core beliefs on what we are all about.
Cool. Well, I'm going to down below in the link here put a link to authenticallychristian.us, right?
Authentically American.
Authentically American. What did I say?
Authentically Christian, which I'm all about that, but you'd be like, Matt, you gave me a broken link here.
I will get that domain and forward it to authenticallyamerican.us.
Yes.
Anything else? This has been amazing. Thank you.
I will tell you, Matt, no better way to be sweating talking about our faith and being salt and light in this world that we live in. So
happy birthday, American. Thank you for
Amen.
your service, and thank you to every veteran who is watching this today. We wouldn't be celebrating today without them.
freedom is not free. And Matt, thank you for telling some incredible stories.
God bless you.
All right. Amen, brother.